All right, here at Contenders, HBO always has some great stuff, and one of the best that they've got this year is a movie called Bad Education, starring Hugh Jackman, Allison Janney, Ray Romano. It's got such a great cast all throughout, and today we have its Emmy-nominated star, Hugh Jackman, joining us. Hi, Hugh.
Hey, great to see you. Thanks,
Yeah,
mate.
you too. Congratulations on the Emmy nomination.
Yeah, thanks. It was a beautiful surprise. Just when I needed it, it was a lovely morning.
Yeah.
Not as early as it was for you, I'm sure, but it
Oh,
was still.
it was a crazy morning for me, but it's so
I'm an
great.
actor. 8:30's early. So
You're no stranger to the Emmys. You actually have one, but it was, I believe, for hosting the Tonys or something like that, or the Oscars, one or the other.
yeah, I remember finding out it was the Tonys.
Yeah.
The hosting. I remember my friend in Australia said, "Only in America can you get an award for hosting an award show." I didn't even know it was a category. My publicist rang to say you got nominated, and I was like, "For what?" Anyway, and I was even more surprised to win. Uh, and I remember, I think Ellen, whoever the host was, I think it was Ellen, but I remember in her opening, she said, "Don't be one of those people who gets up and says, oh, I didn't prepare a speech." And I think my category was either the first or second, and of course, I hadn't prepared a speech, so I was like, "Sorry, Ellen,
Well,
I've
hopefully you
ruined your night." So
have.
not say I'm going to win, but I might be more prepared if I do.
Oh, good. Well, you've been nominated a few times in those kind of variety categories, for hosting those kind of shows. You're so versatile. It's no shock that you would be frequently nominated on that end. But this is for a straight acting role and such an interesting one, too. A true story, Bad Education. And actually, you haven't done that much television that I know of in terms of dramatic roles because, everyone knows Hugh Jackman's been slumming in the movies, doing that big screen stuff.
Yeah. I personally, by the way, love that there's an equal playing field. I think it's fantastic, and we actually, when we were making the movie, I thought it was a film. It went to Toronto and ended up being picked up by a very enthusiastic HBO. So I was kind of thrilled. In the end, you just want everyone who's putting the movie out to believe in it, because and that's why everyone did that film. It's not a big film. It's certainly not like an X-Men sort of thing. And it's just a great story with a great second-time film director, an incredible cast, and I think the way it turned out in the end has been amazing. I mean, no one could have predicted COVID, but even despite that, I think it's just a lot more people have seen it than would have seen it otherwise.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have seen it. Certainly during this lockdown, this period, it's almost perfect. I want to show a clip from it to give people an idea. It's a true story. It's about the biggest scandal in the schools that ever happened, 11 million, $12 million kind of thing that this principal, superintendent got involved in. And we'll talk about that after this. But here is a look at Hugh Jackman in Bad Education.
The board's very aware of how hard you worked for the schools, for Rosalind, for their kids. They know what an asset you've been, and that is why they see this for what it is, a lapse in judgment. And in light of that, they're opting not to press charges or involve the police.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you.
So you'll make full restitution to the school at the sum of $250,000.
$250 full restitution, of course. I'll make it happen.
And then you'll finish out the work week and resign quietly.
What?
Okay, tomorrow morning you'll surrender your administrator's license to the board and you'll sign an NDA committing...
But Frank, well, I don't understand what's happening. I don't understand this.
You stole from the schools, Pam, from the taxpayers, from the kids we're supposed to serve. I mean, this kind of behavior goes beyond the bounds of immoral. It's cruel. It's heinous. It's sociopathic even.
Sociopathic? What?
Shameless self-interest, the unstable personality, the parade of rotten marriages.
Frank!
You need help, Pam. Real medical help. You're a sick woman.
We're concerned about you, Pam.
Oh man, that is such a great scene. Watching you throw your cohort, beautifully played by Allison Janney, by the way, right under the bus.
Can I just tell you, I'm so glad you chose that scene because I often say to people when they ask me what it's like working with Allison Janney, I talk about that scene, and I was lucky enough on her coverage to be literally next to the camera, as close as I could get to the lens. So for about 25 minutes that she was doing her coverage of 3 different sizes, maybe 4 takes of each, I got a masterclass in acting. I'm like, I did 4 years of drama school. I probably could have traded all of that in for those 25 minutes because her ability to roll through all those emotions as well as still keep it comedic. There's a moment that happens just after that clip where she's just so funny, and she's astonishing. So I'm glad you chose that one. Thanks.
Oh yeah, and what I love, and what that clip absolutely shows too, is this is many things, and the tone of it goes all over the place, and it's very tricky to keep that, and it does brilliantly. But it's a very dark comedy. It's black comedy you guys are playing too there, and so real. I mean, it's a trick really to do that and pull it off, but you all did, and brilliant.
Well, I'm really going to give props to Corey Finley because I'll admit when I read the script, I was like, this is an incredible story. If this wasn't true, I would say it's completely over the top. So in a way, that sort of slightly heightened dark comedy element of it really worked. And Corey said to me, I rang my agent. I read the script, and I said, this feels like, I can't quite tell if are we in the sort of Coen Brothers world? Are we in a docudrama? I can't tell. It's funny at times. It's like a thriller. And I said, who's the director? Because that's a difficult thing to pull off. And he said, well, it's his second movie, and he's a young guy. And I remember thinking, sorry, Corey, for saying this. I remember thinking, oh, I'm not sure. And I said, what was his first film? And so I started watching Thoroughbreds, and I paused after maybe 15 minutes of that movie. And I don't know if you've seen that. I'm sure you've seen it, Pete, but those of you watching this haven't seen it. If you want to learn or see an example of juggling 3 genres at once in the most brilliant way from a first-time filmmaker, Corey Finley has to get the award. So I just said yes. I literally rang my agent 15 minutes and I said, I'm in. So it was really Corey. It was really Corey that, I love being in a position to be able to kind of help people getting started. Not that it was his first film, but it was so obvious to me that this was not me doing a favor to him. This was him doing a favor to me.
Wow, yeah, and you got to trust in your director with material like this, which is so tricky. Frank is a very complex guy, as we see here, and he goes through a number of things. So when you went into this, what level of research did you feel you needed to do, and did you ever meet him? Have you ever met him before or after?
I haven't met him. We all decided not to do that, sort of across the board with all the characters. There was so much in the public domain because Frank was a very public and very successful superintendent. He wrote an op-ed in the local newspaper every fortnight for years. He obviously the scandal itself was everywhere. He would do many interviews, and there was a lot of material, and he'd written a lot of stuff. So I felt that there was a lot to go on. I hired Amy Stevens, who I've been working with since I stole her from Anne Hathaway. Well, shared her with Anne Hathaway. I started working with her on Les Mis, and she did so much research. I had hours of footage, and that really, really helped me. But you're right, man. It's tricky because you've got a very successful, very well-liked person doing something that just doesn't make sense. Why would he do that? And how does something like this escalate? How do 26 people at the school end up within a 2-year period getting charged for this biggest felony in public school history? All really good people. Like, how does that happen? And it happens inch by inch. And I think the joy for me was playing a character where on the surface he's one thing, but underneath something else, and fighting that.
There's so much that's revealed to his sexuality, that whole aspect of it, too. It goes in directions, when you're watching this, you're just going like, whoa, you're right. You would not believe this if it wasn't a true story the way it goes.
And I've heard Frank speak after. I feel for him. I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he did something that he deeply regrets. He paid the money back. He went to jail. He served his time. But even he speaks very eloquently, actually, about how it all came about and how he struggled to move on with his life. But he spoke about the sexuality, and he said, I remember going for a job interview around the mid-'80s, so 15, 20 years before this, for an assistant superintendent role. And he was told by the interviewer, said, I wouldn't mention your sexuality. That's not going to help. So 2020 is a very different world from even 2004, which is the world of this film, where in certain areas, in certain places, you weren't going to be chased out of town, but you didn't necessarily sort of put your hand up.
Yeah. He was also very well put together. I mean, the suits, the way he presented himself, it was kind of an interesting thing for you to play.
Yeah, absolutely, because he's a perfectionist, actually. What was his real superpower as a superintendent? Let's not forget, he got this school that was way down in the ranking to number 4. He was the highest paid superintendent in the country. And that's because he's a perfectionist and every detail, but he couldn't be, everything had to be perfect. That pressure, that thing, in the end, what he ended up doing in order to get there was what led him astray, but that sort of manifests in so many different areas. Dressing was one, having the plastic surgery was one. It was an itch he couldn't scratch.
Yeah, and this was actually written, this script, by a guy who was a student at the time,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
that's
we shot in his family home.
Really?
At one point, but he went to school after. I think it was after he was there, but he said the specter of that scandal hung over everybody, and everybody around that area where we were shooting, everybody knew Frank. And by the way, everybody said he was a great guy up until the scandal. So it was sort of fascinating.
When you were, I don't know when this happened, maybe when you were shooting it, this whole story about all these college scandals, admission scandals, was kind of going on or just breaking. And that's not this story, but that is another thing where you see, how did all these good people get involved in such bad decisions and bad things in their lives?
That literally was breaking while we were filming. We were talking about it while we were there. And it is fascinating. To me, the reason I took the movie and why I wanted to play that part is not to drag Frank Tassone through the mud and tar and feather. I mean, the guy got lambasted by the front page of the tabloids in New York every day for weeks. So he doesn't need any more of that. But it's a cautionary tale on how we as humans can at times convince ourselves something is right just because it suits us. And it can happen slowly, and it can happen when you seem to be at the top of the game. I think as humans, we have to be constantly sort of humble and watch ourselves. And, that's obviously, that scandal was slightly different because I think it was that kind of misguided love for your children that I wanted to help my child so much. And in the end, you realize you go too far.
Does this make you want to do, I mean, I know you stumbled into the television aspect of it because it was originally designed as a theatrical film when it went to Toronto. I actually saw it before then, totally thinking this was going that way. But you do get this whole audience out there. And I've noticed, during this lockdown, that when you look at the charts, The Greatest Showman is way at the top. It just won't go away. And it's playing drive-ins, and they're bringing it back. So more people are seeing that and enjoying it, but it's really phenomenal what streaming and what television is now bringing in terms of audiences to this.
I'm certainly not snobby about it at all. I know in times gone past there was some kind of attitude that if you're in movies, you're in movies and you don't do TV. And thankfully, I think that's gone. I think there's what TV allows that many films can't is a depth of character and sometimes a courage in the writing because you already have an audience that's subscribed. So in the same way that a theatre company, if you've got a subscription model, you can have 2 or 3 shows that you would not put on if you just needed to make the money, but you can take a risk. And I think TV's done that so well. And I think the movies could take a leaf out of the book there, like a little more courage, a little, some riskier material. And so I'm certainly not snobby about it. That's my way of saying, yes, I'm open out there, people.
Well, star of movies, television, and obviously Broadway, you're going back. I think you've got a new date for The Music Man. We can't wait for that to finally come around when this is all over. And
April, man. April will be the first preview, May opening night. So fingers crossed.
All right. Fingers crossed indeed. And fingers crossed at the Emmys as well. Thank you for joining us on the Contenders today, Hugh.
Thanks, Pete. I really appreciate it, man.